Hello everyone and welcome to this week's ExtendScript QuickTip tutorial. In this one, I'm going to show you how to find bugs in your scripts. Now we're going to be using a generalized approach which uses alerts and write lines in order to go through and find what's wrong with our code. This can be used to basically help narrow down the section of code that you're having problems with, and then step by step we can break it down and find which line is the problem. So I have this basic script that creates a simple muzzle flash just for a single frame. It creates different layers to create the look of the muzzle flash. And I've gone ahead and distributed some issues and bugs throughout the code to make sure it doesn't function properly. And we're going to go ahead and run it and see how far we get. So in the current state, if I run the script, I'm going to get an issue. Now sometimes ExtendScript or whatever program you're using will tell you what the issue is, which is nice. So in this case, it'll highlight it orange with whatever the issue is, usually displayed down here. In this case, it says there's an expected end parentheses. So what I can do is look at the line that it's highlighted for me and quickly see what the problem is. In my case, I am creating a solid here, so I have, it's the bottom flash layer, so I'm calling it flash bottom. And we're just adding a layer to our comp, and the solid is going to be this color, which is basically gray. It's going to have the name muzzle flash bottom and these dimensions. But the issue is that we're missing an end parentheses. This doesn't tell you what the exact problem is, but generally when there's an expected parentheses, semicolon, or something like that, it usually means that your parentheses are not closed out properly or whatever's within them is not proper. So if we look at this line very closely, we can see after we define what color the solid is, we're missing a comma. We don't want the name to be this color and then muzzle flash bottom. We want these to be separated so it comes in as different arguments. So in this case, that should fix that problem. Now if I run the script, I have a few alerts distributed to tell us some information. The first thing it's going to tell us is our project.name, which in this case we don't have a project open, so it's going to give us undefined. The next sort of checkpoint I've added is after we've created the composition where it's going to put everything, it's going to alert the name of that composition. In this case, we've created a composition named muzzleflashComp, and our alert telling us the name, which checks on this variable, gives us the same information. Then we'll go on until it stops. So I have the flash is complete, which means the flash layers were created. Then the adjustment layer was created. And now we're going to get another issue. This time it says null is not an object. So this is a little bit more tricky of an error that is going to require some more thinking and looking at the other code to figure out. So null just means that one of the values or pieces of information that's in that line of code is not really a valid type or string or variable. So what we can do is look at this tritone highlights effect we're adding. And we need to figure out why null is not an object. So we got as far as this adjustment layer, so we know that this isn't the issue anywhere before here. Sometimes when you get these null is not an object, it will highlight a different line. It's a little bit confusing, but then you can use alerts to see how far you got. And since we got this far to this alert where it says adjustment layer created, we know that the problem must be somewhere in this area. So we're creating a variable called tritone highlights. We're adding it to our adjustment layer we created right here, and we're adding it to the effects, the tritone, and highlights. So it looks like our problem in this case is a single letter. We need to add an I so that it says tritone. So that should solve that problem, and let's see how far we get here. We have our adjustment layer created, and our tritone effect applied, our glow applied, and our radial blur applied. And that should successfully run through the code and generate that muzzle flash for us. Now there are a few other problems in the code which the script actually skipped over, and that is I added a few extra semicolons. Like for example, one right here, I added 2 semicolons, but obviously that does not make a difference. There are some things that make huge differences and some things that make small or no difference. In that case, it's just telling it it's still the end of that line of code. But when you say, for example, remove a letter in the effect named tritone, it totally throws it off and won't tell you necessarily specifically what is wrong. And you can see right here, I'm actually missing a semicolon and it skipped right over that, yet ran it fine. So some things like semicolons, scripting is not going to be as strict on, but other things like misspellings and variable names or missing commas or parentheses, that's going to cause much bigger issues. The last bit of advice I'm going to give is sort of a step-by-step process on how to break down where exactly the problem might be if you're still stuck after all this. If ExtendScript or whatever application you're using has failed to tell you what the error is, if you're not sure at all what the error is, what can you do? Well, what you can do is add alerts or write lines. For example, I have an alert here that says Flash is complete, and I can just go through here and start putting in alerts with numbers, and these numbers are going to tell me how far in the code I'm getting. And using this, maybe we don't get to, say, alert 6 here. I can mess up the name of maybe our variable here. I can go ahead and try something like apply a random different value instead of a mask shape. Now if I run the script, we're going to get undefined for the project name. The comp name is going to be muzzle flash comp. Flash is complete. Now we're going to run through these alerts, 3, 4, 5, and then we get an error. So in this case, extend script tells us where the error is, but if it didn't and it went through and messed up a value or added something strange, what we could say is, well, we didn't get to alert 6. So we got to alert 5, but we didn't get to alert 6. The problem has to be in between there. So that's sort of the easiest way to narrow down where exactly the issue is. Put alerts or write lines between every single line of code where you think the problem is located. And write lines can actually be a lot better since they don't pop up over and over. And in our case, using write lines I think might be easier because it's just going to display them in the JavaScript console. So we can see the adjustment layer was created. And if we look up in our JavaScript console after everything's run, you can see we get 3, 4, 5, 6. And that tells us how exactly far we got. And lastly, you can put in variable names to actually get the values and make sure that the values or variables you're setting up are valid. So in this case, if I run it, you can see I'm going to get an object mask property group, which is our variable for our different masks. And that's going to allow us to know whether or not that variable we've populated is valid or null. Alright, that's going to do it for this quick tip tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Those are a few methods on how to fix and find bugs in your scripts. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up button, as well as hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly on the channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below in the comments section. And of course, follow us on GitHub and Instagram down in the description links down below. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.